I first met Tony just through bluegrass festivals. We would be at the same shows through the years. And I didn't know him very well. I got the chance to play with him a couple times, working with Rhonda Vincent. We would work a lot of the same shows, and occasionally he would get up and play a tune with us if he was there and time allowed or something. But the first time we got to work together was at Tom T and Dixie's studio. Josh Williams was recording an album, and he invited Tony to come play a couple of tunes on that. We recorded Blue Railroad Train, and it was myself and Josh playing mandolin, and Randy Coors on dobro. And I think they added some more instruments later, but we cut that live at Tom T and Dixie's house. And then we actually cut an instrumental as well that was never released that Josh had written. So we can look forward to having some more music from him one day, through Josh's music. So, but that was very interesting. He was a great instrumentalist, and a fun guy to be around. He loved hanging around Tom T, because that was kind of he had listened to him as well, but Tony had a lot of influence through the years. So. But the first time there at the studio, we got done recording, he walks in and hands me his D28. I'm just sitting in a chair like this, listening, and he's like, "Here, I know you want to play it." So I was just sitting down and started strumming. He said, "Yeah, you got to play it easy, It's
this is Clarence White.
Yeah, the Clarence White, the D28, and that was a special guitar. It was even more special in his hands, and anybody that's ever played it will tell you that he could get things out of it that no one else could. So just such an heirloom in bluegrass and acoustic music through the years. But then we got to do a full show with him in Johnson City at the Down Home one night. Our fiddler at the time, Hunter Berry, was friends with Tony. So myself and Hunter and Josh Williams, Aaron McDarris, our banjo player, and Adam Steffi on mandolin played a show, and Tony came and played guitar with us. And of course, we're all wanting to do Tony Rice songs because we love Tony's music. And Tony the whole time was like, "Let's play some Bill Monroe songs. Let's play some Flat Scruggs." He was wanting to play his heroes' music. Of course, we did a good mix of those, and we were going to do. We've got a video of that. A friend of ours videoed the whole show, and he said, and we were going to do "Cold on the Shoulder," which Tony was well known for doing, and he kicked it off. And we're standing there, and Josh looks over and says, "All right, let's do Cold on the Shoulder." And Tony goes, "I believe I remember that one." And it kicks it off. It's just being funny. But yeah, it was such a fun show because, Adam's a monster mandolin player, and then you had Tony here, and I'm playing the bass, and Tony was feeling the rhythm that night. He said, "Man, this rhythm is locked down." I was like, that's a pretty good compliment when you can lock in with one of your heroes like that. So I know any bass player that ever played with him knows that. He was one of those guys that when you played with him in bluegrass music, a lot of times the bass player kind of drives the band, tempo wise. But it was totally different with Tony. It's like he was driving the car. You let him, you let him set the tempo, and you just played with him, which that was certainly a learning curve for a bass player that had never played with somebody like him. But I figured it out about the first song, so and it worked great. We had a great time. In bluegrass music, he was always well known from the time he was a kid because he was such a great musician, he and his brothers. But, with the Kentucky Mountain Boys in the early 70s with J.D. Crowe, and then they morphed into J.D. Crowe and the New South. That's kind of where his prominence came in, in 75, 74, 75. And then people started learning, how great of a musician he was. It just, then he kind of went out on his own and doing his own stuff, going all different directions. When he moved out to California and played with David Grisman, his music, he took a totally different direction. He wanted to explore, more instrumental stuff and jazz, and that really influenced his later playing. He was he could mix bluegrass and that kind of music, the dog music, the jazz, and kind of tie it all in together. And I think that's why so many people are fans of his music nowadays.
You told me last time I saw you what guitar was on Manzanita.
Yeah. Most people don't believe it, but Sam Bush confirmed it. We were talking about it one day. He had an Ovation sponsorship, and he was playing Ovation guitars at the time. So Sam said, and I was like, I don't believe this, but Sam said it's true, that the Manzanita record was cut on an Ovation guitar.
With a round back Ovation?
Yeah, the round back Ovation. And I mean, like I say, Tony can get tone out of anything. And actually that D2080 he plays is not the best sounding guitar in the world, but when he played it, it sounded like $1 million. So, he just knew how to play hard, draw tone out. He could do it, but that blew my mind when I heard that. But you can ask Sam Bush, he'll tell you the same thing. So.
You got to draw pretty hard to get a tone out of that Ovation.
I know. It's hard to believe. But yeah, Sam's like, I know people say it's not true, but I know it is. I was there. I was like, well, you got to believe it. So.
Was it set up like really low action?
I don't really know, because Tony back then played really hard. In later years, he lightened up a lot, but he played. I mean, you can watch those videos like from KET when he was on there, that recording with J.D. Crowe in the New South, but you can just watch, and the way he attacked and played with his right hand, I mean, it was power in that, and which I think later on down the line, he developed arthritis, which caused him to where he couldn't play that hard, and probably was because of how hard he had played all those years, it kind of affected his hands and his arms. So he really lightened up in later years, but he could still get tone out of those instruments for sure.
There's this moment when some people are thought of as more than just a great player or whatever, where there's like a legend around them. When was the first time you started noticing people talking that way about him?
About Tony?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's always been a legend in my mind, because I was born in '76, so he was already a legend by the time I was born, I think, in bluegrass music. But I got to see him play live when I was, 12 or 13 years old. Got to see the Tony Rice unit play at the Ryman when they started the bluegrass nights at the Ryman. And that was probably my first introduction to his music. And Jimmy Goodrow was in the band, and Wyatt was playing rhythm guitar. Ricky Simpkins, I think, either Ricky or I think Ricky was in the band playing bass at that time. But everybody in the bluegrass music circles already thought of him as a legend. Even before, he got older. He was still young at that point. But when you're that good, people just look up to you and want to be like you. That's why there are a lot of musicians that still try to play like him these days and are still studying his techniques.